Winston Churchill called them the good companions. George Orwell said they kept the masses happy and averted revolutions. What were they talking about? They were talking about that great British contribution to international cuisine. Fish and chips. More iconic to England than the Beatles, pubs, and even the Queen. So here we are in the heart of Sukhumvit outside Buster's, a new chippy, as they're known in England, run by veteran British expat David Williamson, who also happens to go by the name of, or nickname of, Buster.
Morning, Colin.
Good morning, David. Buster. So what inspired you to open a restaurant in these difficult times?
Well, to be honest, I think it was the difficult times that inspired me. After losing my retirement job about 3 or 4 months ago, I lost my retirement job. My daughter, my middle daughter, Bar, unfortunately she was running a British company. She also lost her job. The only thing I know anything about is catering, and I was looking to open a new catering venture to substitute for my job, and I thought about fish and chips. And when I was walking through here, I saw this site and I immediately went in to see the landlord and luckily managed to rent it, and that's where we started on our fish and chips.
This looks like a traditional British fish and chip shop, chippy. So tell us a little bit about the design and how you put it together.
Well, obviously, I'd have to say, I'd give my daughter credit. She was the one who did most of the design. I did the functional design, and she did the design of the colours and the materials. And obviously, black and white is absolutely classic. If you go on any sort of website, look at a classic fish and chip shop, black and white tiles on the floor. And obviously, we wanted to give it a little bit of colour. This is no reference to Manchester United, I might say. Yeah, and I think it came out looking quite nice, quite interesting from a design point of view. But also, one of the big problems, obviously, with a fish and chip shop is you're doing frying all day, all night, and that creates lots of steam, lots of fat. So you need to have things that can be washed down on a regular basis.
Chips are chips, but fish is a different kettle of fish. What kind of fish have you got here?
We've got several kinds of fish. Obviously, the mainstay of the operation is Pacific cod, and we use Pacific cod tails. And then I was lucky enough about 6 or 8 weeks ago to come across an interesting Norwegian importer, and he happened to have haddock, which is either 1 or 2 in the fish and chip shop world in the UK, and I'd never actually seen it in Thailand before. So I bought, he supplies me with some beautiful haddock. And because I do cod tails, I use a haddock loin, which is a much thicker piece of fish, and it's beautifully moist, and it flakes really nicely, which is what people want to see when you make fish and chips. We also have halibut, which is another Atlantic fish. This is not the fake halibut that is sold in most of the supermarkets. This is genuine halibut. And then as a nod to the local fishing industry and to locals generally, we're using a fresh sea bass that I have brought up for me and portioned specially by one of the biggest fish exporters and importers in the country.
Do you have a secret recipe for your batter, or is it just...
I do, Colin, but I'm not going to tell you.
I thought you wouldn't.
This is it, but I will just give you a little bit of background. Obviously, although I've been in catering for over 50 years, I've never actually run a fish and chip shop, so I know about as much about fish and chips prior to opening this as probably you did. No, probably a bit more than you, to be fair. And so I watched every video known to man as to how to make beer batter for proper English fish and chips. And I must have watched about 40 videos, and the only thing that was the same was the fact that they were all different. They all had their own idea about how you should make it. Obviously, the main thing you're trying to achieve is a batter that is crispy and delicious and not too thick. So Having spent a year in kitchens when I was 16 as part of my hotel apprenticeship, I know a fair bit about catering. So basically I took all the elements that I saw on there and just adjusted it. So without giving any secrets away, the elements are, I use a really good strong flour. I use an Italian pizza flour, and then I bring lightness by combining that with rice flour. And then you season it with pepper, salt, a touch of baking powder, and believe it or not, a touch of turmeric. Turmeric is used by most fish and chip shops because it gives it that golden colour. Doesn't give it any taste. And then we use a mixture of soda and local beer to give it the bubbles and give it the lightness. The secret with batter is to always use fresh batter and to always keep it cold when you're using it. And today, I must say, everyone, I mean, obviously the social media has been very busy talking about our batter, so I think I must have got something right. Anyway, what do you think of the chips?
Good. So that's your secret. Now we know your secret.
But you don't know the way the ingredients are mixed. I mean, we all know the secret ingredients of Coca-Cola, but it's the way it's formulated that makes the difference.
Tell us a bit about how you cook the fish and how long do you actually cook and how do you cook the fish?
Well, obviously we keep all of our fish comes to us in the form they call now fresh frozen, which is actually in some ways better than fresh. I'll explain why I mean that. When they're fresh frozen, basically this is fish that's caught on factory ships, used or by smaller trawlers that then go to a factory ship, and then they unload it, and then they actually fillet the fish when it's literally just come out of the sea. They fillet it and they freeze it straight away. That's why they call it fresh frozen. Whereas a fresh fish might have spent a day or two on a trawler being taken off back to the coast, and then it's sold and the temperature variations. So that's why we're using fresh frozen, apart from the fact that's all you can get in Thailand in terms of imported fish. Well, that's a lie. You can get fresh fish once a week from some suppliers, but it's a little bit more difficult to handle. So we've got it in fresh frozen. We then take out what we need for the day, we defrost it, and we keep it refrigerated. We always make sure it's kept at the right temperature. Then, as and when we get an order, we take the fish out. We flour it in flour with salt and pepper, seasoned flour, and we then dip it into the batter, and then you lay the fish into boiling oil. Obviously it's not boiling, it's running at normally at about 185 degrees. You have to be careful how you lay it in. Number one, because it's quite dangerous for the hands, and number two, it's if you don't, it can tend to drop to the bottom, and then it just sticks to the fryer, which is not good.
Best way to eat fish and chips? Is it with your hands? Is it with salt and vinegar? Is it with curry sauce?
Well, obviously here we've decided we wanted to present fish and chips in the same manner as the UK. Obviously we don't use newspaper, but we have designed some nice proper boxes. We have some paper it goes with. Here we tend to, I know it's not ecologically correct, but we use a plastic knife and fork, but a lot of people like to eat it with the fish and chips. And it's been noticeable from the last, we've only been open just over a month, but it's been noticeable that we're getting a lot of very nice, well-to-do Thais who have been at university in the UK, they live in the UK, generally they speak much better English than I do, and they come in and they're desperate to relive their previous university life. So they actually sit there and they like to pick it with their fingers, same as we are. But it is obviously a matter of personal taste. But I think actually, sorry, before you can, I think salt vinegar for me are vital ingredients. And then we also actually, as a nod to Thailand, also to Holland. My daughter's at university in Holland, and there they do amazing fish and chips with different types of dips. So we actually offer a range of dips. Generally, we use traditional tartar sauce, which we make ourselves, and it doesn't taste anything like what you would buy in a jar. It's proper tartar sauce. Or you can have a choice of a spicy cheese dip or an onion cheese dip, wasabi mayo, which is delicious. Obviously, we're in a Farang and Japanese area, so we've got wasabi mayo, we've got sriracha mayo, and we have Japanese mayo. So they're all popular, but I have to say nearly everyone likes to go for the tartar sauce, and that's for those of you who are not fish and chip aficionados. Tartar sauce is made from fresh mayonnaise, which you then mix in a combination of gherkins, capers and onions, all imported ingredients, and we make sure it's just always of the highest quality.
Ketchup with fish, yes or no?
I've always been a ketchup man, always. Always ketchup on my plate for almost any food that I eat. So yes, for me, I like ketchup, but I hate all the imitations. So here we try and do everything at the right level. So we only use Heinz ketchup. We only use Sarson's vinegar. We just try and give people a real quality product.
What else do you sell here? You've got mushy peas?
So in the traditional fish shops in the UK, obviously there are traditional accompaniments to fish and chips. So of course we have the standard pickled onions. We have mushy peas, which are actually marrow-fat peas, dried marrow-fat peas, which are soaked overnight, and then they are boiled, and then they're mashed. So we have mushy peas. We also, just because it's popular these days, we also do garden peas, and we also do, what else do we do? Baked beans. That's the other thing. Only Heinz, of course. Since day one, we've tried to run this restaurant on 3 guiding principles. First and foremost is that obviously the quality of the food. Secondly is we've tried to make it I've always been in the club business, in the high-end member club business. So I'm trying to bring some of those principles here. So we try and give people the sort of welcome you'd find in a private club. We try and get to know people's names. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier, one of the difficulties with a fish and chip shop is keeping it clean. So we do our best to make sure that every single night we strip the place down. Luckily, my darling wife, apart from running Thailand's largest recording studio, also has a commercial cleaning company. And for instance, last night they came in here at 10 o'clock. They finished at 4 o'clock this morning, and every single surface in here was scrubbed down and cleaned of grease. You can't stop it appearing, but you've got no excuse for make sure it's clean afterwards.
So are we going to see more Buster's Chippies around Bangkok?
To be perfectly frank, I'm not sure. It's quite amazing. I think it shows the state of the economy. We have literally been flooded out with offers from different new buildings, different real estate people. Would we like to rent space? And 2 or 3 people have, said, can we do this somewhere else? Obviously, we're a very new business. I'm new to fish and chips, although 50 years in the business. I'm new to fish and chips, so I want to make sure everything is absolutely right before I even think about something like that, quite frankly.
Well, good luck for the future. You're obviously doing very well here, and just to say thank you very much for a crackling interview.
Thank you, Colin. It's been one of the better interviews I've ever done.
Thank you for joining us here on BigChilli TV. If you have a social event, or a business to promote, or a story to tell, get in contact with us here at BigChilli TV.